There has been a silent trade war ongoing between the US and China. This isn't just some back and forth over tariffs. It's a full-blown economic showdown, and things are getting serious. China isn't just throwing punches randomly, it's aiming with laser focus, and the targets couldn't be clearer. The industries America depends on the most. We're talking about $60 billion worth of US goods caught in the crosshairs. Farmers are feeling the heat first. Soybeans, pork, and other agricultural products that are the lifeline of key swing states. But it doesn't stop there. Tech? Under attack? Silicon Valley's supply chain is scrambling as critical components become harder to source. Even Texas, with its massive energy exports, isn't safe. And China's message? Maximum damage to the US economy with minimal fallout on their side. But this isn't just tit-for-tat retaliation. This is a strategic play designed to put pressure exactly where it hurts while keeping China's long-term interests intact. Tariffs don't make headlines the way an earthquake does, but their impact just as devastating. A 25% tariff on steel and aluminum might sound like a problem only for factories, but think bigger. When the cost of raw materials shoots up, so does everything built with them. Cars, planes, electronics, you name it. It's getting more expensive. Manufacturers have to pay more to build, and guess who foots the bill in the end? Everyday people. From the price of your next car to the cost of your phone or refrigerator, the ripple effect spreads far and wide. But here's where things get even more interesting. This isn't just about economics, it's about politics. And China knows exactly where to apply pressure. Take American farmers. Iowa, Illinois, states that rely heavily on exports to China, are among the hardest hit. Their losses aren't just financial, they're political. And that's where China's real leverage kicks in. Because when farmers struggle, politicians feel the pressure. Lawmakers in these regions suddenly have to choose, push for a resolution, or risk losing voter support. And that's the real game being played here. The US and China aren't just battling each other in this trade war. The whole world is watching, and no one is walking away untouched. Countries like Canada, Mexico, and the European Union suddenly find themselves in the middle of a fight they didn't start. Global supply chains are tangled, markets are on edge, and uncertainty is spreading fast. Meanwhile, some nations see a golden opportunity. Vietnam and Malaysia. They're stepping up, ready to take in businesses looking to dodge tariffs by shifting manufacturing elsewhere. And when trade wars heat up, markets don't just sit still, they explode with activity. Every time a new tariff is announced, the stock market goes wild. Prices for raw materials like steel, aluminum, and soybeans shoot up and down like a roller coaster as investors scramble to adjust. Tech stocks? They're taking a beating as supply chain delays hit major companies. Even currency markets are caught in the storm. The Chinese yuan dips, the US dollar strengthens, and financial uncertainty deepens. The real question? How long can this chaos last before the damage becomes permanent? But this isn't just a fight over taxes on imports and exports. For China, this is a long-term strategy. They're not just reacting. They're planning for a future where they don't have to rely on the US at all. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, China is busy forging new trade routes across Asia, Africa, and Europe, ones that don't depend on American partnerships. At the same time, they're working to make their currency, the yuan, a global powerhouse to challenge the US dollar's dominance. While China plays the long game, the US is feeling the pressure right now. Industries that power the American economy, automotive, agriculture, and tech, are taking serious hits. Car manufacturers are reporting higher costs as steel and aluminum prices climb. Farmers, already struggling, are dealing with shrinking exports. And tech giants that depend on Chinese parts. They're facing delays and rising production expenses. This isn't just a financial headache. It's a race against time to find a way forward. Does the US find a compromise or double down and escalate the fight? And while the two giants battle it out, other countries are quietly benefiting from the chaos. Nations like Vietnam, Malaysia, and Mexico are stepping in to attract companies looking for tariff-free alternatives. Meanwhile, Russia and Middle Eastern nations are ramping up energy sales to China, filling the gaps left by disrupted US-China trade. While the US and China go head-to-head, other countries aren't just sitting on the sidelines, they're stepping up. Russia and Middle Eastern nations are cashing in, filling the gaps in China's oil and gas supply. Meanwhile, the European Union is playing both sides, strengthening trade ties with both Washington and Beijing, positioning itself as a neutral alternative in an increasingly divided global economy. And if there's one thing markets hate, it's uncertainty. Investors don't wait around for politicians to sort things out. They react instantly. Every new tariff announcement sends shockwaves through global markets. Raw materials like steel, aluminum, and soybeans see wild price swings as businesses scramble to adapt. Tech companies are getting hit the hardest, with major supply chain disruptions threatening production. Even currencies aren't safe. The Chinese yuan is under constant pressure, facing threats of devaluation. Meanwhile, the US dollar grows stronger, making American exports even more expensive and complicating international trade. The world is watching, not just to see how markets will react, but to see how much damage will stick. At this point, this isn't just about trade anymore. It's turning into a full-blown diplomatic standoff, and neither side is backing down. Trade negotiations feel like walking on thin ice, and with tensions so high, one wrong move could escalate this beyond economics into a much bigger crisis. Countries like Japan and South Korea are caught in a delicate balancing act, trying to maintain good relationships with both superpowers while avoiding direct involvement in the fight. But the longer this drags on, the harder it gets to find a way out without lasting consequences, not just for the US and China, but for the global economy. And tariffs? They're just the surface of a much bigger strategy. China isn't just reacting, it's choosing its targets carefully, making moves designed to create maximum pain for the US while protecting its own economy. First, they went after American agriculture. Soybeans, pork, and other farm exports took an immediate hit, especially in politically sensitive swing states where farming is the backbone of local economies. Then came automotive parts and energy exports, including liquefied natural gas, LNG, a market the US was hoping to dominate with massive exports to China. And of course, tech. China's restrictions on certain US-made components have disrupted Silicon Valley's supply chains, slowing down production for everything from smartphones to advanced microchips. But Washington isn't backing down either. With 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum, the US is sending a clear message. It's willing to take the fight further. The problem? This strategy comes with serious risks for American industries too. When the cost of steel and aluminum goes up, it doesn't just affect factories, it ripples through entire industries. Car manufacturers are already sounding the alarm, warning that rising material costs could lead to job cuts and production slowdowns. Aerospace and construction companies, they're feeling the squeeze too, as higher costs make big projects harder to afford. Small businesses are in a tough spot as well. Many rely on imported machinery and parts to keep their operations running, but with tariffs driving up prices, some are being forced to delay projects or cut expenses just to stay afloat. And then there's American farmers, still struggling to recover from the first wave of tariffs. They know that if trade tensions keep escalating, they could lose key export markets for years, making it even harder to compete globally. If the US decides to raise tariffs again, there's no way to avoid supply chain disruptions and higher prices for everyday consumers. For most people, a trade war feels like something happening in the background until they see the impact at the checkout counter. According to CNN Business, tariffs are already making electronics, clothing, and appliances more expensive. And that's just the start. New cars and trucks now cost more to make, which means higher sticker prices at dealerships. Grocery bills are creeping up as tariffs disrupt the agricultural market, affecting food prices. Small businesses, thousands of them, are stuck making tough decisions, absorb the extra costs, pass them on to customers, or cut back on operations. Bottom line, this isn't just a policy debate, it's hitting people where it hurts, their wallets. So, where does this all go from here? The way things unfold will have huge consequences, and there are only a few ways this could play out. 1. The trade war keeps escalating. Both sides refuse to back down, tariffs go higher, and before long, we're in a full-blown economic crisis with damage that won't be easy to undo. 2. Short-term deal. The US and China might agree to a temporary truce, easing tensions for now. But if they don't tackle the real issues, it's just a pause, not a real solution. 3. Long-term shift in global trade. This is the most likely scenario. China moves away from relying on US trade, focusing on new markets instead. The result? A permanent economic rivalry that lasts for decades. One thing is clear, the stakes keep rising and the world is watching. So, what do you think? Are we on the verge of a resolution, or is this just the beginning of a massive shift in global trade? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, then you should be sure to subscribe.